Melbourne's western and northern corridor gets a lot of attention, but if I had 700k right now, I'd be looking at pivoting into the southeast, and I want to show you exactly why and which 3 suburbs I would back. Come on, let's go. Let's now slide straight into the southeast corridor. Here's what I'll cover. First, why the Southeast Corridor is genuinely underappreciated in 2026 and the data that's driving that view. Then, we'll walk through my 3 suburb top picks, one by one, the price, the yield, the structural driver, and the specific reason each one looks mispriced right now. And of course, I'll finish with the 1 suburb in this corridor that I'd like to be a bit more cautious about, and the 1 test that should come before any offer in this part of Melbourne. Let's get into it. First and foremost, let me just wrap up and down this coffee. Melbourne is trading at a roughly 13% discount to its historical ratio with Sydney, the widest gap ANZ has measured in 2 decades. KPMG is forecasting a 6.6% house and a 7.1% unit growth here in 2026, the strongest projected of any capital city. The vacancy is sitting at 1.4 to 1.6 near record lows, and the city is taking on more than 73,000 new residents a year into a market that is structurally so undersupplied. The Southeast Corridor is where that plays out at a price of 750k a buyer can actually reach into. And the Metro Tunnel, which opened in Feb of 2026, changed the connectivity maps for Cranbourne and Pakenham specifically. My first pick on the uphill of Cranbourne North. It's running the strongest 1-year growth in the corridor at 12.7%. That's not why it's in. It is in because that growth is backed by building approvals of just 0.03%. There's next to no new supply behind it. The suburb is largely built out, and at 24 days on market, it's the fastest clearing in this corridor. It's genuine scarcity, not a handful of outlier sales and homes multiplying out. This suburb sits in a nurse out of 5 with around 26 other properties owned by renters only. Homes are moving relatively quick, averaging about 25 days on market, which is the fastest result across this group. The vacancy rate is sitting at 2.16%, while the building approvals ratio is extremely low at just 0.03%. That matters because it tells us there is very little new housing supply coming into this particular suburb. People also tend to stay here for a reasonably long time, with an average hold period of just over 8 years. So, while Cranbourne North has already recorded the strong growth, the more important story is that demand is being supported by limited housing supply coming to market and fast-selling properties. Second is Narre Warren, the Stability Pick. What I mean by that, tightest vacancy of the whole group at 1.39% and the longest hold period at just over 10 years. This is a sticky, low churn market, not an investor driven one. Owner-occupier galore, and the amenity here is already delivered. Bunjil Civic Centre, gallery, library, art centre between Westfield Fountain Gate and KC Hospital, with the station having been rebuilt in 2024. It's operating, it's functional, it's a heartbeat. Nothing here is a promise, it's operating, it's a heartbeat of Narre Warren. It sits in an earth out of 4 with about 28% renters. Properties are taking approximately 33 days to sell, which is still a healthy result for an established market. The standout number here is a vacancy rate at just 1.39%, the lowest among all the suburbs we assess. Its building approvals ratio is also a low 0.40%, meaning there isn't a wave of supply coming in. But perhaps the strongest signal is the average period of more than 10 years. That tells us people are not constantly buying and selling here. They tend to move in and stay, which is exactly what you want to see in a stable, owner-occupier market. Third is Pakenham, the Infrastructure Pick. It's a metro tunnel terminus with direct CBD connectivity and the fastest turnover in the corridor at 7.5 years. What makes it unusual is the timing. The 800 million plus Pakenham Community Hospital is on track to complete in 2026, within walking distance to the Sound Centre, and it lands alongside the Pakenham Revamp project and a $1 billion plus road package, including a new Pakenham East station. Health, transport and town centre investment all in the same 12-month window. You in many cases complete soon, not someday, not somewhere in the future. Pakenham sits in a nursead of 4 with slightly higher rented to owner-occupier ratio of around 31%. Properties are taking roughly 45 days to sell, so it's moving a lot more slowly than Cranbourne North and Narre Warren. Your vacancy, however, remains tight at 1.52%, which points to a solid rental demand. Your building approvals ratio is slightly higher here at 0.8%. So unlike Cranbourne North, there is a more new supply to account for, simply because Pakenham is a much wider suburb. The average hold period is around 7 years in climbing, suggesting that there's slightly more turnover in the market, but still relatively stable. That doesn't necessarily make it weaker. It simply means Pakenham needs to be assessed differently. Here, the investment case is much more closely tied to the local infrastructure, transport, and the continued development of the town centre. There are 2 suburbs I left out on purpose. Cranbourne West looks similar to my picks on price, but its vacancy is 2.4% and the highest anywhere in that particular corridor. More than double what you see in Narre Warren. It's exactly the kind of detail a headline growth number will never show you. It sits in nursead of 4 and has the lowest rental ratio of the group at around 22%. Properties here take approximately 43 days to sell, notably much slower than Cranbourne North. Biggest concern is vacancy. At 2.4%, Cranbourne West has the highest vacancy rate across the suburbs that we reviewed. It also gets coupled with building approval ratios of 1.21%, which means more new supply is entering the market in the next couple of years. Its average hold periods are around 7.5 years. None of these numbers are disastrous on their own, but when you place a higher vacancy rate besides the larger supply pipeline, it becomes harder to justify choosing Cranbourne West over its stronger counterparts nearby. My lesson here is a dollar metric should never be read in isolation, and I hope this is the biggest learning that you take out of this video. Berwick, a genuinely strong community-led suburb. The education, the health hub of the corridor is now well past that 700k breed, with the slowest medium-term growth of the group. Berwick sits in a whopping earthside socio score of 9 out of 10, which makes it the most socio-economic advantage suburb in this group. It has a solid renter to owner operation, about 22%, and properties are selling approximately in just over 30 days. Vacancy remains relatively tight at under 2%, while the building approval ratio sits at 0.44%. The average hold period here is long and just over 9 years, which shows that people tend to stay in the area. Fundamentally, Berwick is a strong and established market. The issue isn't necessarily the suburb itself. That's ticking all of the right boxes. The issue is that at the higher price point, it makes it less suitable for the budget that we're working with. So in this case, it's less about Berwick being a bad suburb and more about whether it still represents the best value with our budget. So here's the single biggest mistake I see, and the one test that fixes it. The mistake is chasing the headline growth number without actually checking what's sitting underneath it. Before you act on any suburbs growth figure, I want you to put out the vacancy rate, the building approval ratios for the same suburb, and put them side by side next to one another. And this is why Cranbourne North is the best example in this corridor right now. The 12.7 growth looks like the obvious pick, and on its own, that number tells you nothing about whether that growth is going to be sustainable over the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years. Check the vacancy and the building approvals ratio alongside it, and they back it up. It's next to no new supply coming in. Whilst in Cranbourne West, a suburb that looks similar on the price, the vacancy rate is more than double Narre Warren's, and that's the detail that the headline hides. If vacancy is climbing and supply is building at the same time, growth is running hot, you're looking at a number that's about to correct, not a trend that you want to be buying into. Because as we say it, supply is the enemy of capital growth. And we're simply not in the business of investing in supply. There you have it. These are my 3. Cranbourne North for growth, Narre Warren for owner-occupier stability, Pakenham for infrastructure. If you want to know whether a specific suburb passes our Insight to growth pyramid framework, vacancy, the supply, the hold period, the stability, that's exactly what we do day in, day out. You guys know what to do, the link's in the description. Subscribe if this was useful, and of course, I will see you on the next one.